Hello once again, and Tony here with a review of the English National Theatre's production of Mary Shelley's classic horror story, Frankenstein, which was a play conceived by Nick Dear and was shown at the Barbican Center's Cinema One. The director of this play was Danny Boyle. The lighting was handled by Bruno Poet. The set design was done by Mark Tittlesley. The costumes were done by Sutirat and Larlarb, and the music was done by Underworld. Now, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein has been quite an interesting horror story because, well, if you first think Frankenstein, you'd usually think the monster from the film of the 1930s starring Boris Karloff, or even the Frankenstein monster having like a very imposing height with stitches on his head, very green skinned, wearing black, and has bolts sticking out of his neck and making like very low rumbling noises like something like that. And usually they be like zombies. However, what some people don't know is that the Frankenstein monster starts out like speaking in gibberish while very stitched up and trying to like gain a concept of how the world works, but instead ends up being looked at as society, especially by his own creator, as nothing more than a monster, though he tries his hardest to be accepted into the regular human society. Every time he tries, he fails miserably and often with disastrous results. And, well, the thing about Mary Shelley's Frankenstein is that it really shows the duality of man. Is man truly a monster, or is man trying to do things for the greater good? It's very complex in its writing, and it's quite interesting that Shelley herself wrote this at only 18 years old, and then like 5 years later, it was made as a play, but has caused some controversy because of certain contents in there. It talks about a lot of controversial topics like the nature of the human mind, the nature of the human body, the human soul, like playing God and trying to resurrect the dead, trying to like, well, make science and creation work. There's a lot of complex topics to really talk about it, whether it be in terms of psychology, biology, spirituality, resurrection. It just is all there. And in terms of humanism, that's what Mary Shelley's Frankenstein was trying to talk about. Is man truly treating his fellow men like monsters, or how they perceive them through prejudice and through many other vices in their lives? And it really shows just how that the Frankenstein creature is not just a monster that threatens us. He was created by one Dr. Victor Frankenstein to prove that he can resurrect man from the dead, but ultimately has lost his mind and played God and tried to prove himself that he can do these things and try to resurrect dead people, but often with the most disastrous results and even like the most heartbreaking. Well, excuse the noise outside. I don't know if any of you can hear it, but well, it's Halloween and well, it's quite typical for certain people to go out partying. So, anyways, with that little quibble aside, so this is what really meant about Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. It's not just some monster terrorizing a city and making low noises and all that, but it's someone who was created by another man who doesn't really understand the complexities of the world and sees it like a child, but often is misinterpreted for doing some things that are very cruel and very, well, scary and often out of the norm. And with this type of fictional work, you can really see why people talk about this so much, why people like to feel fascinated by this story, and why people feel so intrigued by it. And, well, even though I haven't really read the book a lot, I had the pleasure of watching parts of the film directed by Kenneth Branagh, which starred Robert De Niro. And I had to say, I pretty much liked it back then when I was a kid. It was quite enjoyable, and it really made me see the world of this classic horror story. And it wasn't just some guy scaring people looking very intimidating, but no, but rather someone who was created by another man to try to really observe the world around him. However, has been treated like a monster by society. And now that the little trivia is out of the way, let's get on to what I thought about the production. Now, the production of this play was slightly minimalistic, and, well, it really helped set the tone of this gothic and very spooky atmosphere that I got myself into. I mean, the opening part is almost like, well, what you'd usually experience at birth, with the baby coming out. But in this production, it's almost like there is some sort of like a curtain, a quite transparent curtain, and then we see the creature coming out, making a lot of weird noises and talking in gibberish, rolling around the stage as if though that he was a newborn baby coming to life. And that's what it's really trying to reflect. He almost is like a newborn infant coming out of the mother's womb, or you know what. He basically comes out on stage just rolling around the stage, making a lot of indescribable noises and doing a lot of indescribable bodily movements. And that's what really fascinated me about this production. Not to mention, after this, we get treated to some type of steampunk looking denizens, and from there, there's a lot more scenery, but it really helps to really see that this type of scenery kind of enhances the gothic and very gloomy nature of what we're getting ourselves into with this production of Frankenstein. So overall, I am very intrigued by just how gothic and minimalist this production is. And the music also helps to really heighten the intensity of certain scenes, and even some of the gentler scenes, and also some of the scenes that are quite frightening. And let me just say that Underworld, the people behind this group, really knew how to make appropriate music for certain scenes, whatever the action really is, whether it's a sad moment, an intense moment, or even just a brief moment of joy. They really know how to pull all of the stops. And talking about the acting is like really talking about Benedict Cumberbatch's and Johnny Lee Miller's performance as both Dr. Victor Frankenstein and the creature. These two veteran actors really knew how to play off of each other. And before I get to their chemistry, let me talk about them individually. Now, Benedict Cumberbatch is no stranger to a lot of Hollywood films and even to British films. Yes, he usually plays the nice guy and the loyal and very sweet type of person. But here, as Dr. Frankenstein, there were moments where I was kind of creeped out by him, to the point where it was such a riveting and very dramatic performance that I was just so sucked in. And he was able to play the insanity that Victor Frankenstein is going through, and his overzealous nature really shown in all those scenes of how he has to create like life from dead men so he can prove to the world that he can do this, although in his slowly decaying mind. And he really knows how to play this type of character. He does add a little bit of humanism and humor to this character. and I felt so intrigued by his performance. And Johnny Lee Miller as the creature was also as intriguing. Starting out speaking gibberish and making a lot of indescribable noises and doing a lot of indescribable movements. And then when he gets taken in by the old man who is DeLacy, he immediately starts to learn how to speak and really sees the negativity that the world has to offer. He really plays the humanism and the childlike innocence of the creature and even the childlike curiosity of the creature. He really knows how to play him very effectively. And let me just say that the makeup artists really knew how to transform Johnny Lee Miller into the creature with the stitches, the gashes, the sutures. It is just so unbelievable that it just feels so scary towards me, and it's just awesome. It really shows just how awesome of a portrayal this gentleman really does. And speaking about these two gentlemen, how they worked off of each other was just so riveting. They really know how to really work off of each other. They know how to give each other impulses and all of these other things that really make a great actor. In fact, every time I watch their performance together, I not only get immensely intrigued, but also quite jealous because, well, I would really like to play one of those characters. Specifically, Frankenstein, because, well, he seems to be the character that I really like to play, as in the insane type, though not really like over the top insane, but someone who thinks he knows that he's doing is right, when instead it seems immoral, unjust, and taboo. But what's also interesting is that I'd probably also like to play the creature one day, because in some ways I kind of share some features with him, or some aspects about him. Well, we're both kind of curious about the world around us, and sometimes we feel kind of shunned by people, and that's what kind of makes me empathize with the creature of this play. And, well, that's all I can say. Both Cumberbatch and Miller really, really outdid themselves in this production of Frankenstein, and the other actors did magnificently as well. The woman who played Elizabeth, who is Naomi Harris, is just absolutely lovely. She was able to portray Elizabeth's sweet, gentle, yet very strong-minded nature and very loyal nature very well. She was a great actress, and especially a great person to play with alongside Cumberbatch and Miller. She really knew how to work off of all of her colleagues. And then we have Clarice, played by Ella Smith, who also played the prostitute Gretel. I really enjoyed her as Clarice. She managed to make Clarice a very fun-loving and very sweet and very humorous character. And speaking of humorous, yes, Frankenstein's creature does get some humorous lines left and right, which kind of left the audience laughing and also left a little snicker on me as well, and which I also like, because what is true entertainment without a little, or what is true horror without a little bit of humor at times, which kind of helps it be less depressing. So yeah, the experience is definitely worthwhile. And going back to Ella Smith's performance as Clarice, it was definitely very fantastic. In fact, all of the actors that I saw, going from Carl Johnson's DeLacy, Stephen Elliott's Klaus, Lizzie Winkler's Agatha, Daniel Miller's Felix, Jared Richards' William Frankenstein, and George Harris's Mr. Frankenstein, they were just all stellar. So overall, this production, though minimalistic, I definitely enjoyed the hell out of it. The stars of this production of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein were none other than Benedict Cumberbatch and Johnny Lee Miller. So, with that said, even though this isn't a movie review, I would still say it kind of classifies itself as a film because, well, speaking of which, the cinematography for it was also quite fantastic as well. Every panning shot, every shot that the people behind the camera managed to do was just gorgeous. So it still works as a film, and I give this a well-deserved 5 out of 5. This definitely is one of the most awesome live stream plays that I've ever seen, and this definitely crowned my Halloween reviews with a bang. It really went out with a bang with this wonderful production of Frankenstein. And kudos to all of the magnificent performers, especially Cumberbatch and Lee Miller. Well, that's all for now. Be sure to tune in tomorrow where I review the Metropolitan Opera's production of Carmen, and it's a live stream production, so do expect a review on that, well, tomorrow evening. Until then, this is Antoni signing off, wishing you all a good night, and I hope you all have a very happy Halloween. Good night, everybody.